We are in the middle of learning Mishnah's Nedarim, Perek Beis, Chapter 2. We're in the middle of Mishnah Beis, actually the last part. That reads, Zechaymer b'shvuas Nedarim. That's where we're going to begin from. All right. Zechaymer b'shvuas Nedarim. Translated means, this is the way in which shvuas, what we translate as oaths, are stricter than Nedarim. Now, which way? Now, if you typically, after reading this sentence, you would say that the last thing that we just mentioned at the beginning of what we mentioned at the beginning of the Mishnah is what we're referring to now when we say that shvuas are stricter than Nedarim. And in the beginning of this Mishnah, we had cases, for instance, when a person said, "Karben lo yoichalach," a carbon I will not eat of yours. And there were two other examples of a person using the word carbon in a way that does not make a vow, while in a similar form, if he makes a shvuah, if he makes an oath, it does count. And therefore, you would have thought that when the Mishnah makes this statement, that in this, that makes a statement, this is the way that shvuahs are stricter than Nedarim, you would say that it's going back on the first half of the Mishnah that did show where a shvuah works and a neder doesn't work. However, as the Bartanura points out, the wording, the words, this is the way that shvuahs are stricter than Nedarim, means that there is something, that we're talking about two things that have some kind of level of validity, and one is stricter than the other. But if you say that one works and one doesn't work, you wouldn't say one is stricter than the other. And therefore, it cannot be going back on the first half of the Mishnah, because in the first half of the Mishnah, the examples of Nedarim were Nedarim that were completely ineffective. And therefore, the Bartanura points out that we're not going back on the beginning of this Mishnah of Mishnah Beis, of Mishnah 2, we're actually going back at the end of Mishnah 1. And Mishnah 1 had the case where a person said, for instance, Kainim Sheini Yashain, a carbon I'm not going to sleep. So that doesn't work, because you can't make a neder on an action, on something that doesn't have substance. Midarais, according to Torah law. According to rabbinic law, it does stand. If you say shvuah she'eni yashen, if you make a shvuah that I'm not going to sleep, that has full effect. That's a Torah law. That's a Torah shvuah. But even the case of the neder, of the vow that we had in that case, where we say you can't make a neder on an action because a neder is always on an object, that's according to Torah law. According to rabbinic law, in these cases we say the neder does take effect. And therefore, when our Mishnah says, it takes effect at least according to rabbinic law. And therefore, when our Mishnah says, this is the way that shvuas are stricter than Nedarim, it's going back on that case. It's stricter than the Nedarim. The Nedarim in that case have some level of validity. Midrabanan, they're valid. And the point is that shvuas are stricter than Nedarim in regarding to actions, trying to forbid an action, in that a neder is going to work in those cases of carbon I'm not going to sleep. Those work only midrabanan. While if it says a shvuah she'eni yashin, an oath that I'm not going to sleep, that works even according to Torah law. Okay, so that's that sentence of the Mishnah. Now, the Mishnah then continues. V'chaymer minedarim v'bashvuos. And then you have a way in which nedarim are stricter than shvuos. Ketzad, how's that? Amar, if a person says, now listen to this case, kainem sukkah shani oiseh, which literally means a carbon, the sukkah I'm going to make. So what is he trying to prohibit? The sukkah, right? A carbon, the sukkah that I make. That means the sukkah that I make should be like a carbon. The sukkah that I make should be forbidden. That's what he's saying. Or lulav shani noitel, or kainam, a kainam, which again is a substitute word for a carbon. Lulav shani noitel, the lulav that I'm going to take. He is through a neder, he's trying to forbid the lulav. Tefillin shani maniach. The tefillin, a person says, kainam tefillin shani maniach, which means a carbon, the tefillin that I'm going to put on myself. Okay, that's what he said. And by linking it to a konam, to a net, to a carbon, which is an object that you declared forbidden, you voluntarily declared it forbidden, you are now declaring the sukkah and the lulav and the tefillin forbidden. And therefore, on that we say, B'nedarim aser. If you do that and you do it in the form of an neder, it will be forbidden. The tefillin will be forbidden for you to wear, the sukkah will be forbidden to you to sit in, and the lulav will be forbidden to you to take. However, the shavuos mutar. But let's say you use the shvua form on these cases. So, for instance, shvua, sukkah, the word, how would the wording go exactly? Right. Shvua, the typical way of saying it would be, the way you would say it is, shvua she'eni noita lulav. An oath, I'm not going to take a lulav. Shvua she'eni yoshe b'sukkah. A shvua, I'm not going to sit in the sukkah. Shvua tefillin she'eni meniach. Tefillin that I'm not going to put on. He makes a shvua that he's not going to do these mitzvahs. In those cases, says the Mishnah, b'shvuos mutter. In the case of the shvua, it's ineffective. It has no effect. Now, mutter, it's permissible, meaning no effect. You got to put on your tefillin, and you got to put on sit in the sukkah, and you got to put on tefillin. Why? Shein nishbayin la'avar la mitzvahs. You cannot make a shvua. You cannot make an oath in order to stop you from performing a mitzvah. That's what it means. You cannot make a shvua to transgress any of the mitzvahs of the Torah. Okay, so we got to talk about this right now. We got to try to figure. We have to analyze this. Okay, the person, if he says shvua, a shvua that I'm not going to sit in the sukkah, that doesn't count. If he says the carbon sukkah sha'ani yoseh, but if he says the sukkah that I make is a carbon, that will forbid him from sitting in the sukkah. What's the difference? The difference is the typical difference, the regular difference between a neder and a shvua. A neder is on an object. In this case, the sukkah. A shvua is on you. I'm not going to do the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah. So when it comes to a shvua which is on you, and you're trying to forbid yourself from doing a mitzvah, you can't do that. You're already obligated to do the mitzvah. You can't stop your obligation. You can't affect your obligation. You're trying to forbid yourself from fulfilling your obligation. You can't do that. You already swore at Har Sinai, that you're going to keep the Torah. So you can't go ahead and make a shvua to say that you're not going to keep a mitzvah. So what's by the neder? I mean, at the end of the day, by the neder, if I say that the sukkah that I make is like a carbon, that means any sukkah you make, you're not allowed to sit in it. Isn't that also basically stopping you from doing a mitzvah? The answer is effectively yes. However, the way that you make the neder is that you're talking about the object. You're forbidding the object. Now, if I don't have the object anymore, I can't do the mitzvah. For instance, let's talk about a case of. That's a good example. Oh, right. The example that's used is matzah, right? A person says, let's forget about what a person says for a second. Let's say a person is in a situation where it's Pesach, he's got to eat matzah, and the only matzah that he has around is tevel. It was made from grain that the trumas and the maisus weren't taken from. Can you eat the matzah? No, you can't. It's called mitzvah bab aveira. It's a mitzvah you do through a sin. You're not allowed to do it, and if you do it, you don't have the mitzvah. And, but I have a mitzvah to do. What should I do? The answer is, of course, you have a mitzvah to do, and you have an obligation to do the mitzvah, and the obligation isn't affected. I just don't have what to do the mitzvah with. In this case, similarly, although you made the sukkah aser, you made the sukkah forbidden, right? You made it forbidden. At the end of the day, you didn't make yourself forbidden. You made the sukkah forbidden. So it's like you don't have a sukkah. And if you were to go and sit in that sukkah, and can I go into that sukkah? No, I can't. I'm not allowed to go into the sukkah. I made a neder not to go into the sukkah. I made a neder. The sukkah is forbidden. If I were to go into the sukkah, it's a mitzvah bab avera. It's a mitzvah that comes through a sin. I can't go into the sukkah. So that's the difference between the neder and the shvua. The neder is always on the object. And if I go ahead and I say a sukkah is forbidden to me, I have forbidden the object. I haven't forbidden myself. I've forbidden the object. Now that the object is forbidden, I can't do it. It's indirect. I'm not directly going on myself. I'm going on the object. And since I'm going on the object, and now the object is forbidden, I can't do the mitzvah, just like in the case of the matzah. If all my matzah is forbidden, I can't eat it. But when you're talking about a shavua, which is on you, you're saying on yourself, you're forbidding yourself from doing a mitzvah that you can't do. And that's why the Mishnah says, that's the Mishnah's example of where we say that the neder is stricter than the shvua. Because in these cases, the neder works and the shvua doesn't. Now, one last thing. We said before that the wording, when you say this is stricter than that, that means they both have a certain level of validity. And just one is stricter than the other. So in this case, in the case of the neder on the sukkah, we say it works. The shvua that I'm not going to sit in the sukkah doesn't work. If it doesn't work, there's no validity to it. Then how do you use this as an example of saying a shvua is stricter than a neder when we said that that expression has to mean they always have a level of validity, but one's stronger than the other? The answer they bring down here in the notes is that the level of validity to the oath is the fact that if you make this shvua that I'm not going to sit in the sukkah, you get lashes for it. You made a shvua shav. You made a shvua in vain. And for making a shvua in vain, you get lashes. So therefore, there is something here. It's not like there's nothing here of the shvua. There is something here. You made a false one. And therefore, and you're going to get lashes for it. So in that sense, the shvua is here enough to say that the neder is stronger than the shvua. The neder is effective, the shvua is ineffective, but there's something there to what you did in the sense that you made a false one that you're going to get lashes for it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Reverend.